Old School Bodybuilding Clothing Company. If you're the hardest training person at your gym, you are old school. If you hate math but you can count by 45s, you are old school. OSBBC.com for the hardest training athletes.
RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Iron Debate, the show where we settle the score. Today's topic, Big Ramy. The topic was going to be, should Big Ramy get a special invite to the 2020 Olympia? Well, breaking news just happened. Big Ramy has indeed received a special invite to the Olympia. So now the topic is going to be, should he have received a special invite to the Olympia? Let's quickly go around the horn first. We go to the man who won the 2020 New York Pro, Iain Valliere. You're going to see him on stage at the 2020 Olympia. Welcome, Iain.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
We go to Texas. He won at the California Pro last year. You saw him on the 2019 Olympia. Patrick Moore making his Iron Debate debut. Welcome, Patrick.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Appreciate you guys having me on.
And then we go to the man they call the Mind, or as I like to call him, the guy that I bug on WhatsApp every couple of weeks to try to get him on the show, Milos Sarcev. Milos, ready to bring it as always. Welcome back, Milos.
It's good to be here. It's an interesting topic, and I can't wait to share my opinion.
And then, of course, we go to our Cape Coral studios and bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, breaking news, and we have this show. We have the panel that we wanted. All systems ready to go.
Hey, you know what? It's a very juicy topic because you know what? It's one of these topics where we have an equal amount of people on both sides of the argument. A lot of times we do these shows and everyone is in agreement, and it's still a good discussion, but not everyone agrees on this. And so I think that this will be a good show because we'll see both sides of it.
So let's touch on the topic, and we posted this on Instagram a couple of days ago, whether or not Ramy should get an invite. It nearly started a civil war in the bodybuilding world. You look at that post now, we're talking about upwards of 4,000 comments all around the world, North America, the Middle East in particular, for obvious reasons. Let's get a quick primer. Big Ramy last on the Olympia stage in 2018, finishing out of the requalification zone. Last year, he joins up with Neil Hill. Rumors that he was going to partake in New York Pro. Doesn't do that. Then he was going to go to the Tampa Pro, has a shoulder injury. He's out for the season. There were some rumblings of a special invite, but nothing ever came to fruition. Fast forward to this year. And then everything going on. Again, rumors New York Pro, that didn't happen. Rumors Tampa Pro, that didn't happen. And then he announces about 2 weeks prior to the Europa Pro on a YouTube video saying that he was going to be on stage on October 11th. Then the night before, we see that his name is not on the competitor list. All sorts of rumors abound, and then, of course, he confirms to us that he is competing. Sure enough, the next day he posts that he has COVID, will not be competing. That's where we stand now, and, of course, he missed out on the points with Maxx Charles, Justin Rodriguez, and Regan Grimes finishing top 3 in the point system. So we posed the question. Iain Valliere, we're going to go to you first on this one, because remember last year, you've been consistent on this point. Last year when Cedric McMillan got the special invite, you were very vocal about shouldn't it be earned? And then, of course, with the Ramy topic, you must have responded to at least 700 different people, making a case for Ramy. Why should Ramy not have gotten a special invite to the Olympia?
So I want to start and preface this because I know if I don't say this first, I'm going to get just berated in the comments here. So I am completely aware that both Cedric and Ramy are better bodybuilders than myself. So for anyone that's going to go into the comments here and say, Iain doesn't want Ramy at the Olympia because Ramy's going to beat Iain. Yeah, I know Ramy's better than me, and I want Ramy at the Olympia. That's where you're going wrong. I would love to have Ramy at the Olympia. I think Ramy's an amazing bodybuilder, and I think that the Olympia is the stage where you want all the best competitors in the world to come together and compete for the title of the best bodybuilder on the planet. So I'm all for Ramy being there. Where I come off here is that I think that the Olympia qualification is such that you need to qualify. I understand that he didn't, that there was extenuating circumstances this year that got in the way of that. But he is not the only person on the planet that is being affected by COVID. I understand that he tested positive, so have millions of other people. I understand that he wasn't able to attend certain shows, so are millions of other people and hundreds of thousands of other competitors and amateur and bodybuilding shows, pro shows alike. So, I think when you start to go down this road of the special invite, it opens a can of worms. And it's going to be, next year with some, top tier guy by some chance because of compete or something happens in his life or something, he'll be lobbying for a special invite. And then it's going to go just down this, and it's going to, well, Ramy got one, well, Cedric got one, well, this guy got one. And then you start to get, this snowball effect where they're handing out special invites just because the fans are now requesting it. And now I can see this from the perspective of a show promoter. If I was promoting the Olympia, would I invite Ramy? Fucking right I would. I mean, Ramy sells tickets. There's absolutely no debate about that. I would want Ramy in my show. In the Middle East, which is a massive bodybuilding market, Ramy is going to get tons of pay-per-view views. He's going to have people attend the show. He is a marketing marvel. You want him in your show. And I would agree. If I was promoting it, I would have him in the show. But speaking from a competitor standpoint and from the fairness of the qualification standards, I don't think anyone should get special exemptions. And I think if you look at this in any other top-tier sports or athletics, the Olympics, no one cares if Usain Bolt, if he misses the Jamaican trials in the 100-meter or he comes out to the side of the top 2 or top 3, he doesn't go to the Olympics. The Olympics doesn't say, well, he's Usain Bolt, he holds the world record, and he won the last Olympics. They say, well, you didn't run the standard. You need to prove within the given year that you're deserving. 6th place at the 2018 Olympia is not requalifying, so that doesn't prove it. And 3rd place at the Arnold this year is not a win, and that does not requalify you. Everything after that is just shitty circumstances, which I don't think are deserving of an invite. So, that's where my stance isn't. And as I spoke last year on Cedric, I understand that, Cedric is in the military and that's a very high calling. And I can understand people's passion for that, especially in America where it's something people are very, very devout and patriotic about. I completely understand that. But Cedric has chosen to be in the military. This is a career path he has chosen. When you choose to do something, you have to be completely responsible for any responsibilities that coincide with that. If that happens that you cannot compete, well, then that's the responsibility that you have to share. You can't just, I wasn't able to compete because I was working, give me a special invite. And I'm not saying these guys lobbied for it per se. I understand that the show is the one that granted these. Like I said, from a show promoter standpoint, I completely understand it. But from my perspective, no, I do not think there should ever be special invites.
We know where Milos stands on this, but I want to go to Patrick first because I'm actually not sure where you stand in this. You commented on that post saying that you would like to come on and talk about it, so that's where we, decided to include you on the panel. Where do you stand on this now official Big Ramy getting the special invite?
So I first came across that they were saying he deserved it on another page that is based here out of Houston, and like Iain said, I got that storm first. Once I spoke on that, I commented on that page. Everyone came on there. He's better than you. He's twice your size. He's this. You're just sour. Oh man, I got the storm, and that's cool because with me being an athlete, I'm a little more vocal than some of the other athletes are. So I'm okay with taking the shit that comes with the positive. It's happened. I've been dealing with it since I replied back to the very first comment on anything on my page. So I'm in line with Iain. Like he said, I love Ramy. He's awesome. I met him in person at the Arnold Classic this year in 2020. Super humble guy, super nice guy. And I think where everyone got it wrong, thinking that this is me singling him out, or this is not the person. This is not because of who the athlete is or this, that, or the other. It's the verbiage that was put out saying, oh, he deserves. Once we start to talk in that realm, okay, now you're getting real slippery because, I used Iain as an example before the show. Iain had to quarantine twice, to come down here to the U.S. to compete. If he wouldn't have won, he would have had to return to Canada. That would have been that. And we had to wait till next year. I don't think anyone would have said, oh, Iain deserves a special invite. Yet he still would have put in the work. He would have sacrificed his time, his personal life to do the job that we all have to do to be on the elite stage. That's the Mr. Olympia, right? So that's where my point came in when I said, because I've always been earn your spot. That's just a slogan that I live by. And in a sport where it's do or die, in bodybuilding, like it's cut and dry. You're either good enough or you're not. Point blank, period. We come in the gym every day. We train. You stick to your diet. You do your cardio. You stick to your discipline. You miss out on certain things in life, whatever it is. Then you bring your final package to the stage in hopes of a victory or a point system, standing qualification, whatever, to get on the Olympia stage, right? That's what we all have to go by. Now, once you bring in Ramy on this particular subject, yeah, it sucks because it's uncontrollable circumstances. But what about Samson Duwado, right? Didn't he go to somewhere where he was in a hotel room for 2 weeks or however long he was and had to go compete? I mean, come on. So isn't he deserving? And I'll use Sergio as an example. Sergio was 5th at the Arnold. Sergio could have very well went on to the Australia, placed higher, and then been on the 2020 Olympia stage. Do you see Sergio? And not that Ramy is requesting a special invite, but no one's considering Sergio, or any other on-win has 9 points. What about him? So that's the problem that I have, is when people are saying deserves. Because if we're going by deserves, then we're all putting in the same amount of work, the same sacrifices, the same thing to be on an elite stage, which is Mr. Olympia. From the business standpoint, I get it. And IFBB Pro League, this isn't a shot at them because they're amazing. We have careers because of the Pro League. So they're going to make their decision on their own, which that's what they do. This was a debate on an opinion. And from an athlete's perspective, like mine and Ian, and I'm sure other open competitors who may have voiced it, or maybe they don't even care. We know that, hey, we put in the time, to qualify. And if it happens, it doesn't happen. I'm not on the 2020 Olympic stage because I did not qualify. I did 3 shows this year. I did not meet the requirements. And no matter how popular I am with the fans because of a small waist or condition or whatever, it doesn't matter. I didn't cut it. I didn't meet the requirements. So that's that. And like I said, once again, no shot at Big Ramy, but since he's one of the best in the world, what about all the other guys who place top 5 consistently in the Olympia? If you're that great, then I think you have to earn your spot into that top 5, and then we wouldn't even be having this conversation. So it's not about Ramy's not good enough, because he's definitely better than me. He's bigger than me. He's won more titles than I have. He's gotten a higher placing at the Olympia. So this is not an attack on him. Like Ian said, this is specifically, we have a set of rules. When us as athletes enter this sport, we know what the premise is to qualify for your pro card, for whatever. Like Ian said, what about the amateur people who were, predicted to turn pro and they didn't get to compete and they backed out? So should we give them an honorary pro card because they're popular? So that's the thing. It sucks for Ramy. And it's very disrespectful on another note to say that he would have placed guaranteed qualified for the Olympia. You don't know that. He could have come in and got food poisoning and placed 5th and been even further down the point system. So it's the speculation, it's the deserves, it's a very, very slippery slope. And me as an athlete who I can accept my losses because I don't deserve to be on the 2020 Olympia stage because I didn't earn it, then I think that all the other athletes should really be required to follow the same standards. So that's where I'm at with it.
Milos, let's go to you because you specifically mentioned some of the stars, and there is past precedent. I mean, you mentioned the likes of Gunther, of Lavroni, Flex Lewis, and all the accolades that he had at the 212 level. But then I want to read something that you said at the end of your main response to the thread, and that was that he made a legitimate effort to properly qualify. In your opinion, is that enough? And then if you want to go back to the past precedent, some of the legends that you cited.
Well, let me say it like this. I agree with both Iain and Patrick as far as earn your place, qualify. So there is a qualification round for a reason, and then there was the points. Okay. Another rule is promoter and IBB has a right since 1980s to invite anyone. Since 1980s in the rule book, they can have a special invitation for anybody they choose because they think there will be a right for a contest, for the audience, for the competition, and so on. So contrary to Olympics, as Iain said, you have to qualify. Usain Bolt, you're not qualified, you can't run. Well, here, there is a discretion of promoter and then IBB Federation to allow competitor to compete. Obviously, it took one day for them to approve him because, let's face it, Ramy is not just anyone. He placed top 6 in the last 4 Olympias he competed. He's the 5 times IBB Pro Champion. He placed second, I don't know how many times. So everybody knows he's going to bring up the heat. He's going to make this competition better. So from a standpoint, he didn't qualify. He didn't. That's one rule. But the second rule is IBB can choose who they want to invite. Now, if Ramy did not even attempt to qualify, I would agree. We would all have that sour taste, okay, why he's so special. But he did prepare for a contest, and you guys know what it's like preparing for a contest, going through all the hell of dieting, cardio, and getting yourself in shape, and then you stop and say, no, you can't enter the contest. So this COVID situation, I mean, I salute you, Iain, that you did everything to your power. You came 2 weeks and stayed in quarantine, and Samson went all the way to Korea. I mean, this is respectable, and I take my hat off. And I would personally award these people. But now the question, should we bring Big Ramy? Yes. Let me tell you, IBB brought this back in 1980s for one person only, Lou Ferrigno, to be invited in 1992. Okay, let's look at the females bodybuilding. Juliet Bergman did not compete for 17 years. She was specially invited, and she won Olympia in her return. So what is going to happen if Big Ramy wins the Olympia? Oh, he didn't deserve it? Well, this is pinnacle of the sport, best of the best. Let the best people compete. Should we want to see the Mike Tyson at his best, even if he didn't earn the championship fight? Yes, we want it. Michael Jordan in the games? Yes, we do. So who would not want to have a Big Ramy that is obviously top contender? It's just okay. I earned my spot. He's given. Let me tell you, I qualified for Olympia first 10 years, and in 2000 I was qualified, and I was told I cannot compete. I said, "What do you mean I can't compete?" "Yeah, well, you have a health clearance." I said, "Listen, I'm healthy as can be. I'm ready." I was not given a chance to compete. Gunther Schirakamp didn't qualify. He got it. 2000. Then he didn't qualify. He got the 2001 again, and then he didn't qualify again. 2002, 3 years in a row. So if Gunther can be invited because Joe Weider and Federation want it, why would not be Big Ramy? Big Ramy is actually a potential candidate to win.
Dave, let's go to you because we actually just spoke about this a little while ago when the news broke, when we were recording Ask Dave, and you seem to have a little mixed emotion because last week you mentioned this fact that, past promoters, you mentioned Wayne DeMilia specifically, and, the penchants to invite some of the big stars to give the event a little bit more gravity. But again, you did mention that this could send a wrong message to the likes of, say, a Samson Dauda or Sergio Oliva Jr., who did all the things that, they had to do in order to quarantine with the wonky situations of 2020. So if you want to chime in with all those things combined, your opinion now, Big Ramy getting this special invite.
The Arnold Classic, is an invitation-only show, meaning that they invite you to do the show. You can't qualify for the Arnold. I mean, you could do well and then apply for it and say, hey, I won this show, I won that show, and the Arnold people pick you. That's an invitation-only show. The Olympia has always been a qualification show. Now, Joe Weider and Ben Weider worked in this special invite thing because they wanted to invite the stars, the guys that were the people, sponsoring their brand to be able to go to the Olympia, without, necessarily having to qualify. I mean, Lou Ferrigno was a legend in the sport. I mean, when he made the comeback, Joe was paying him big money. There was no way they were going to make Lou Ferrigno have to qualify for the Olympia. And he's a different story. He's a legend, Just like when you let Flex Wheeler come back or you let a Kevin Levrone, these are legends who have earned their stripes, their whole career. They're Hall of Famers that are coming back, for God's sakes. It's like, telling Mickey Mantle he can come back and swing a bat a couple more times on the Yankees team when he was at his best. So, I understand the whole concept of that, but you can't turn the Olympia into an invitation for people you want to invite, and then the ones that you don't want to invite, you say, well, you guys got to qualify, sorry, If you're going to make an exception for this year, 2020, because it's a weird year and there wasn't as many shows and COVID, you should really invite all the people who want to go and who've actually made an attempt to try to go and who maybe missed by a point or two. Patrick was a top 10 Olympian last year. Invite him. If he wants to go, invite him. He's a top 10 guy. Why not? They should have just opened it up to the top 10 guys, who are at the Olympia. If you want to come back, you can come back because we know it's a messed up year. That would have been the right way to do it. You can't. The problem with Ramy is that this whole thing is filled with drama. Number one, I don't believe that he had COVID. Okay, the guy had COVID. 2 days later, he was back in the gym taking pictures with other people around and everything like that. I don't believe it. I didn't see a failed test. My inside sources told me that he had a diuretic issue. He was in a hospital or something happened medically, and that he had to be treated for it, and he probably just wasn't going to be his best on stage. And rather than show up and not be your best, okay, I understand he didn't do the show, and he probably figured, you know what, I got points from the Arnold, I'll probably make it on points. And then he fell short, and now obviously the problem occurs. But You know what? He could have planned to do the New York Pro or the Tampa earlier in the year. I mean, Milos, you should know better than anyone. How many times did Maxx compete? You got Maxx in the best shape of his life. You made him do 100 shows. And guess what? He got the most points of anyone out there, and he wound up going to the Olympia. That's what Ramy should have done. You know what? Maybe Ramy would have been better at the Olympia if he would have competed a few more times. Maybe he's not competing enough and he doesn't really know his body. So I think they're rewarding almost laziness on his part, and that's why we're not seeing the best Ramy. If he couldn't get in shape for the Chicago Pro Show, I mean, which was the last qualifier of the year, what makes us think that he's going to be ready for the Olympia? Now that doesn't mean that he won't. That doesn't mean he won't show up at the Olympia at his best.
Ramy
but
just
setting
released a statement, so I just want to read this before you comment.
Yeah.
I want to thank the IBB Pro League, Mr. Jim Manning, and the whole team, Mr. Dan Solomon, for offering me the chance to participate in the 2020 Olympia. I'm very thankful to them. We all had an awful year. I did my best to fly to the Arnold Sports Classic in Australia, but the lockdown didn't allow the show to happen. Then I stayed 4 months in Dubai, stranded away from my family, never stopped training, hoping for the best. I managed to prep for the NPC Europa show, where I couldn't participate after getting positive with Corona test. Thanks to God, forget about all this and aim for a brighter future. All right. But Milos, if you want to address Dave's point, again, you look at the example of someone like a Maxx Charles who really put in the work, did what he had to do. Yeah, and he was rewarded to get in the top of the points table.
No, and Milos, before Milos answers, Milos did more shows than any other bodybuilder on the circuit. So if there was a point system then, Milos would have been the top point getter for absolute sure.
Yeah, for sure. And Dave, I agree with you very much so. If we are awarding the laziness or maybe, fake COVID and stuff like that, that's a completely different story. I'm just talking facts. Invitation is there in the rules and they can choose.
Right.
So they choose him.
Right.
So we can't complain about why IBB Federation chose, like they chose Flex, the Flex Lewis, to be exact. Yeah, that was a great choice. But now he's pulled out. They have that one special invitation.
But Flex Lewis won the Olympia 7 times.
Yes.
Mr. Olympia can go to the Olympia.
Absolutely.
That's been always the rule.
Listen, he deserves it.
Yeah.
He absolutely. As you say, Lou Ferrino deserves it. Absolutely. Juliet Bergman, Flex Wheeler, Kevin Liberoni, everybody. Okay, but when you look at the last year's Cedric McMillan, right? He was given because he didn't have a chance to earn. He didn't have a chance to prepare for that contest and compete. So there was a similar role. I didn't know that this is your opinion that Ramy faked the COVID. That would be,
the only reason I say that, and I don't, and if he did have it, I apologize, but I don't believe he had it. Yeah. But because he was in the gym like a couple days later taking we didn't see a picture from Ramy the whole year. All of a sudden, when he doesn't make the Olympia, we see a back shot of him in the gym.
Yes.
3 days after he had said he had COVID. Come on.
But you know that very well that pictures put on Instagram could be 6 months ago.
No, that was a recent picture. That was a recent picture.
That was just okay. Yeah. Well, by all means, I think. Look, I qualified doing a 72 pro shows because I had to qualify. I had to back in the day be in the top 3 in any pro show. And this is 1990s. Kevin and Flex and Sean and Ronnie and Chris and Paul and Lee and everybody else. So I had to earn it. I earned 10 times. So you can, I can imagine Iain last year lost by 1 point. Right. I mean, for me, I would have invited him. You earned it, okay? Right. 3, why not 4? They could have do this, okay? Let him in. From that standpoint. But right now, just what we're talking about is facts. Ramy, good or bad for the Olympia?
Great for the Olympia. I agree. Great for the Olympia.
So, we all agree that he's great for the Olympia.
Yeah. I don't think there's any disagreement that he's an amazing athlete. And like Iain said, if I'm a promoter, hell yeah, bring him a special invite. Because guess what? If we have to fucking pay-per-view even 100,000 streams, well, that's an additional 100,000, 200,000 streams or whatever because of one athlete. So, yes, 100%, you need him in the show, especially with this year and the way everything is going. I'm sure a lot of promoters probably didn't make as much money as they would have normally with any normal circumstances because me and Iain, we saw it in New York, dude. In Tampa, there wasn't a lot of spectators in the audience. We actually had to buy our tickets for our significant others or anybody that was with us, your coach or whoever, you had to buy a ticket. There was nothing given to an athlete. So I can understand from a business standpoint that he definitely should be there. But, like I said, once the verbiage was put in there, who deserves it, and then you have everyone saying, oh, he's better than this person and that person, and because of the circumstances, I mean, that's unfortunate, but still, like you said, there's two sides to that coin. You have one where the business side, absolutely, he should be, it's in the rules, this, that, and the other. And then on the other side, you have, okay, well, what about the other athletes who suffered, uncontrollable circumstances as well? How do you decipher between the two as to who really deserves? Because we could say a lot of people, Canada is a very big place. We could say how many people, if Iain didn't make the cut last year, how many people want to see him on the Olympia stage? So
well, here's a better one, Patrick.
There.
How come Ramy wasn't invited last year?
That's absolutely true. And that was the thing, too, is we have athletes that are qualified for the 2020 Olympia that competed post-Olympia in 2019, and they got their qualification early. I think we have Juan Morel. There's a couple of people who competed right after. So when we have all those shows, even before COVID, that would have given you a qualification status. Yeah, I just don't understand. I mean, he could have.
I just want to touch on something quick too.
Yeah, go ahead, Iain.
With Milos said, like with the being in the rules, I understand it's in the rules where that is where it differentiates from the Olympics per se. But what we're discussing is if it's deserved, and I think that the rule itself is poor. I mean, and as Dave was saying, why it was originally brought into fruition, was for someone like Lou or because of sponsors or things like this. I mean, I just don't think the rule as a whole should exist. Period. I mean, I think it shouldn't be a rule. I think that. Or if it is going to be as a rule, that they need to use it a lot more sparingly, because it's, it starts to get into debates like this that we're having right now. I mean, I think, sure, if you're going to have an exception like Flex Wheeler or Kevin LeBron or something like that, because let's be serious. Kevin or one second, my dogs are going to
Yeah. Real quick before Iain continues this point. What's crazy is how they have what did they do last year? The People's Champ, and Heidi actually won that last year.
Right.
So if the fans are the ones that are pushing for this to happen and so on and so forth, well, they should go ahead and make a rule for the fans to pick who they want to come into the Olympia. If that's the reasoning behind it, if it's a business standpoint, then but like I said, I get it both ways, and I just wanted to clarify from an athlete's perspective that I think any other open athlete or any other category are going to agree, hey, we all have rules that are in place, so I think we all need to follow the qualification system. And if not, you're going to have debates, like you said, about who deserves it, who should get that special invite. So I just think it's
I'll just finish what I was saying. So, yeah, what I was saying, but with guys with like Kevin or Flex or stuff like that, I mean, let's be serious. Neither Kevin or Flex would have qualified on their own accord. They wouldn't have made to the Olympia. And there's someone, like Dave said, had earned their stripes. And I also don't think that they're people that are necessarily detracting from the qualification standards of other athletes, where I think Ramy has the opportunity to compete. He is someone still in the competitive realm, and needs to put, you can say, put the effort forth, which apparently, he did per se, but it's a crappy year. Everyone's in the same situation. I mean, Ramy, like we said, he could have been over. I mean, how I did it is whenever the first show was ready, which was Tampa Pro, I was ready to be on stage. I showed up at Tampa. I didn't win Tampa. I went to the next show. If I didn't win New York, I would have gone to the next show. Right. I would have quarantined 2 weeks between every single show until I either accumulated enough points, done the Milos style, just banging it out, show after show and trying to get my top threes, or until I won a show. And I would have quarantined every time between. I mean, Ramy, and I think this is, like Dave said, it's rewarding laziness. I mean, he could have been ready for an earlier show. I mean, okay, sure, Australia didn't happen. You said you were stuck in Dubai, preparing. Okay, well, why weren't you ready for Tampa?
Right.
You're
right.
Hassan Mustafa was ready at the beginning of the year for New York. I mean, he came over from the same part of the world as you. He was here. Why weren't you?
And Hassan Mustafa was in the hospital with bleeding hemorrhoids, and he got on stage.
Yeah, right? He was there with literally with a 2-day-old baby backstage as well.
Right.
So I mean, this guy's there with bleeding hemorrhoids and a baby that's like straight out the oven, and he's backstage there. And guess what? I mean, he stuck around. He went to Cali after that. Yeah. He didn't win New York. He went to Cali as well. Yeah. I mean, Ramy is in the same boat here. I mean, I think he left it to the last minute. The opportunity slipped away from him, and now he missed it. And now, I wouldn't say he's looking for a special invite, but I mean, now that's on the table, and he accepted it. I mean, I think, with a year like this, you need to be ready for every single opportunity that's given to you. And that's how, I went about it. I was ready for Tampa. I didn't win Tampa. And like I said, I went to the next one. I think Ramy should have he looked at himself as, I'm going to be a walk through the show, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but then you should have been ready for the beginning of the season, get that opportunity out of the way. And if something happens there or you can't get into the country or whatever it is because of all the circumstances, you're ready to go to the next contest. You need to have, contingencies in place. And he left it to the last minute. There was no contingencies and it was too late for him. You missed your qualification. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Guys,
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I jump in? Because I agree with everything that Iain is saying. Did he deserve it? But let's look at Gunther Schirerkamp. And I want to say this, emphasize. Look, 1999, he placed 9th at Arnold and 5th at Ironman. In 2000, 6th at Arnold, 4th in England, 4th Ironman, 6th in the World Pro Championship, 12th at Olympia. So again, he didn't qualify. Then 2001,
but I don't
10th in England, 9th in the Night of the Champions, 15th at Olympia, and he's still invited in 2002. Like no results whatsoever, zero.
I understand.
And Ramy has a top 6 in last for Olympia.
I don't think look at the past matters because what we're debating here is that the rule is being overused, and Gunther is a perfect example of that. I mean, Gunther is just to me reinforcing the point of this.
Right.
I mean, the fact that Gunther got it is just as ridiculous as anyone else getting it. Gunther shouldn't have got it. Cedric, in my mind, shouldn't have got it, and Ramy shouldn't have got it either. I mean, I don't think looking because they did it in the past should be like, oh, well, they should do it today. No, they shouldn't be doing it at all.
Right. They should change the rule. Right. Exactly.
Change the rule. Yeah.
But okay, where do we draw the line? Like, okay, 2016 we had Kevin Levrone, right? And obviously there's enough justification to bring back a Kevin Levrone. But where do you draw the line for this kind of a thing? Iain, we'll go to you on that.
I mean, it's a tough spot. I mean, I think you need to draw the line on people that are not currently active and competing. I mean, someone like Ramy is still an active competitor. He has competed within the last year. I think that the concurrent competitive athletes need to make a stab at the qualification. If you don't, you're not qualified. Someone like Kevin or Flex, like I said earlier, no offense to either of them. I mean, obviously there was a lot of hype when Kevin came out, but if we're being realistic, neither of them were going to be able to qualify on their own accord. So they would have showed up at Toronto Pro and not placed, and then that would have been the end of it. That doesn't give you hype for your big Olympia. So I understand that. They've also earned their place from their entire career. They're Hall of Famers, like Dave said. So I think that's very different, and they're also very far removed from their competitive career. So I think if someone is still active, I do not think that there should be invites in place. If it's going to be, you're going to extend to someone that was, a previous Olympia champion 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they've been out of this game for 5 years, let's say, you could set a number at this. You haven't been currently active for 5 to 7 years or something, and then they can extend you a special invite. There has to be some kind of, verbiage around it that makes sense. Because if someone's still active, I mean, it just messes up the entire premise of it. In my mind.
I think what Iain. Let me just add the point to this. I think that what you're saying is that the special invite should be special.
Yes.
For special people.
Because if you're still competing, you're not more special than anybody else.
No, you can't. I mean, you can't put that.
The only person in my mind that's more special than anyone else is a reigning Mr. Olympia, and they have a lifetime qualification.
Right.
Phil could not compete for 25 years and could come back. I mean, once you have that win, you have it for life.
Joe Weider used to abuse that special event. They put that in place because at the time the magazines were so important in promoting his brand, and he owned the Olympia, so it was his Olympia, and so I understand why they did it, why he did it. But really, now that we have this point system, which is like the championship racing series, whoever gets as many points at the end of the year gets to qualify top 3 people. Now that we have that system in place, it's more fair. You shouldn't abuse the special invite anymore because there's no need to. Now, if Lou Ferrigno at 60 years old wanted to make a comeback, or Arnold wanted to compete in the Olympia because he thought it would be funny at 70 years old, of course you're going to give it to Arnold, right? I mean, but if you give it to, like Iain says, a person who last year pulled the same thing, didn't qualify, waited till the last minute, faked a shoulder injury or whatever he had, and then he still wanted to get a special invite. He was asking for it. It's too suspicious. It's like my son. If he's acting like a maniac and I reward it, he's going to keep acting like a maniac. So I think that it was, while I love Ramy, I think he's a great guy and everything like that, and I think that he's good for the sport. You can't reward that because it sends the wrong message to the other competitors, and it tells Ramy what he did is okay, and he can do it again next year. Hey, you know what? Don't worry about it. You don't compete and qualify. We'll give you another special invite because you're the biggest guy on stage. That's not fair.
So, guys, let's talk about the role. Actually, Patrick, you want to make a point? Make your point, and then I'll kind of go to this point about Ramy.
I was just gotcha. I was just touching a little bit on what Ian said. You know, I actually said that in a comment thread. I said I could see if Ramy, this was his last year, he was retiring. He wasn't going to be active anymore. You know, all these different things. But I said that he's an amazing bodybuilder. His future is far from over. You know, I would assume that he's going to compete at least for another 5, 6, 7 years or whatever. This won't be his last shot at the Olympia. So for someone who is able to actively compete, you have 365 days a year to prepare and get ready, like Ian said. And you know this is a weird year, and you should be ready to go at the drop of a dime. I mean, I did the Arnold Classic, and then I was going to do the New York Pro and the California Pro right after because they were rumored to still go on in May or June and so on and so forth. I stayed in prep all year long, you know, all the way until September to go and do a show. I was thinking the Puerto Rico Pro would happen. It got canceled. So all these different circumstances that affected me personally as an athlete, I'm sure they affected Ramy as an athlete and every other athlete that had plans. And here we go. So now because he got sick, like Dave said, I don't know the whole background of the story. It's unfortunate if he did get sick, but because of that, so we just give him an invitation. Well, like I said, you're getting slippery because other athletes were affected just as well, and they attempted as well. But I guess because those athletes aren't good enough, now you can't give them an invitation because they aren't good enough. But they still made the same effort, still sacrificed, still did the same thing. So that's why I said, no one deserves it unless, like Ian said, if for some reason they cannot qualify and they just want to be seen on stage. Then you have the business perspective and the rules that are in place for a special invite. You should be special because your circumstances are special, not uncontrollable, because we can all go through uncontrollable circumstances at any point when we're prepping for a show.
I feel like there are three main angles.
Can I just say one thing here?
Go ahead.
I think the easiest way to solve this, and I was having this conversation with some of the comments, the easiest way to solve this is just open the point system, the qualification from 3 to 5 or 5 to 10. Just right. Or 3 to 10. Just make it like that. Ramy would be in, and all the people that made the attempt and have accumulated points would have that same opportunity as well. So On-Win would be in. All these guys would be in. So you're not giving anyone special treatment. You're rewarding the guys that have made the effort. It's a funky year, sure, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, we're going to make a little bit of a rule change. We're not giving anyone special exemptions. We're just opening it up. So instead of 3, okay, let's do 5, so then you let in Ramy and Ann. You can make it 6, 8, whatever you want. You can do the math, however many guys you want. That's really up to you.
That would have been fair. You're right.
That's the most fair way. I mean, you're letting, guys that have made a true effort in. If Ramy had been 0 points then he wouldn't have been in. But Ramy is tied in for 4th in points. So yeah, he did make somewhat of an effort, but it was not enough of an effort to qualify by the current standards. So if you're going to make an exemption, that's where it needs to be. It needs to be opening up the points a little more to 3 or 5 or 7 or whatever it is, giving everyone that made that shot an opportunity in, and that's where you go from there. I think that's really the only way to make it fair for all the athletes that really took a stab at it this year.
There are like 3 main angles here. One, there is the angle of he didn't earn it because he didn't qualify, flat out. I mean, you have circumstances. You have other athletes that were affected by similar circumstances. So there are going to be those that are going to say, flat out, he didn't qualify. Then there are going to be those that are going to try to equate him into that category, citing his, second place finish in 2017 and all the other runner-up finishes, 5 pro wins. And then there is the angle of what Milos brought up, which a lot of people agree with, and we can't dispute this. He is a superstar. He will bring an element of pizzazz, an element of followership. I mean, look, you're seeing the support that he's getting from the Middle Eastern fan contingent, and we know how rabid the fans are of bodybuilding over there, and especially when it comes to Big Ramy. You see him in any sort of Middle Eastern, fitness expo, what have you. You could have anyone there from bodybuilding. Big Ramy is going to attract the biggest crowd, the biggest line, so on and so forth, as we know. So let's go to this point, because we bring this up seemingly every year when it comes to Big Ramy, and especially Big Ramy going to the Olympia, and that is the now pressure on Big Ramy. Now, in previous years, it's always been everybody loves Ramy, and I'm not saying that anybody now is turning against Ramy. What I am saying is Ramy's always been this feel-good story, right? He came out of nowhere in 2013, and then we've always been waiting to see the best of Big Ramy. And we always believe, like, Zoolander, right? When we finally see Magnum, we're going to be sitting back saying, it's beautiful. We haven't seen it yet, but we still hope to see that day that we finally see. However, you're going to have fans this year that are going to look at Ramy with a bit of a tinged eye and say, yeah, maybe he doesn't deserve to be up there. So, Ian, we'll go to you first on this one. The pressure that Ramy is going to face this time up on that Olympia stage with all these chips in order?
I mean, I think, if someone like Ramy faces this kind of pressure every single year he competes. I mean, I think since, you go back all the way to New York Pro Days or something, I mean, people have had Ramy kind of flagged in as a, potential Olympia winner, and that potential has been, very put in very high regard. So I think his pressure has always been there going into the Olympia. I don't think from his perspective he's going to feel any more at this point. I think for someone like that, you're always, trying to look your best and get things, dialed in the best you can. But when you're someone like that, that is always, really regarded as someone that's like, if he was just made as, like you said, if he was just a little better, if we haven't seen the best of Ramy, blah, 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 blah. And every year you kind of fall short on that. That pressure is already there in my mind. I mean, I have no doubt that Ramy has, probably more pressure than almost any athlete up there other than probably Phil this year. I think Ramy has the eyes of that whole part of the world, which is a gigantic fan base. I mean, there's millions of people that love Ramy and, want Ramy to succeed. And I mean, I want Ramy to succeed as well. Plus also the pressure of being a top contender that's always kind of missed your mark. I think that pressure's always been there for him. But I just want to touch on one thing here, just go back. Sorry, I hate to backtrack. And this is kind of really proving onto kind of what Patrick said about the deserving thing, because if we're going to play it just from the angle of selling tickets or anything like that, well, let's say it had gone this way. Let's say Ramy had ended up in third and qualified, and that bumped Regan Grimes out. Regan Grimes has one of the biggest followings in bodybuilding right now. He's 1.5 million Instagram followers. Say he had been fourth in points. Would anybody have lobbied for Regan to get a qualifier and said that, well, Regan will sell tickets? Fucking right. Regan will sell tickets just about as good as anyone on the planet right now.
Mm-hmm.
Pay-per-view views. I mean, he has a massive following. People love Regan. He's one of the most popular bodybuilders on the planet. So if he had been fourth and just missed out, or say he couldn't have showed up at a show or something had happened, would people have said that and be like, well, Regan should be there because, he's good for the Olympia and he brings, money in, blah, blah, blah. No. They wouldn't have said that because he's not as good as Ramy. So then it becomes about how good you are. And that's really what Patrick was saying. It's about the deserving, and people deserve it because they're better than others. So you really eliminate the sales pitch argument of it right by there, because I think if it had been anyone else, you wouldn't have made this argument if their fan base was equal to Ramy's. It would have just been about how good of a bodybuilder they are. So,
Patrick, talk about the now element of you're going to have a segment of fans that are going to look at Ramy, and it's not going to be the same as previous Olympia years. Now that people are going to openly wonder whether or not he deserves to be on that Olympia stage.
Yeah, I saw him, like I said, for the first time in person, actually on stage with him at the Arnold Classic. And I mean, the guy's huge. So, like you said at the beginning, there's just two sides of it. There's, does he deserve it? And would he be great for the Olympia? No athlete, I feel like, deserves it. And yes, he'd be absolutely amazing for the Olympia. And I think the pressure is there because when I saw him backstage and after he took third, and I talked with him for a little bit, I could tell he was kind of disappointed at his placing. And he told me, he said, yeah, I try my best. I come like this, and then I get this place, and then I come like that, and I get this place. And he was like, I don't know, what he was really confused. But as great as he is, he wasn't, angry. So I think that pressure is going to be there because now that you receive that special invite, you're going to have us other athletes. We would marvel at seeing Ramy phenomenal because he's so damn big. He has so many, gifts. He's crazy. So when you see, we've been looking for him to come in like, wow, like that's crazy. So now you got even more eyes on you because you received that coveted special invite that you're going to have to, there is no, you hear people say this is a make or break for certain athletes. They use that term on me. Oh, his next show is make or break. And I'm new. I don't deserve that kind of pressure. But that just goes to show you how the fans in the sport is. So that pressure is on him. It's going to be a make or break because you basically have taken off almost 2 full years. You haven't competed except one time at the Arnold. So I think that people are going to expect something very big from him. Me personally, I love him. I think he's amazing. I hope he delivers because I would like to see a competitive Olympia. I don't think any fan wants to see a washed out Olympia because we dealt with that last year and people were saying, oh, 2019 is not a good year. There's this person's gone, that person's gone. It's not going to be this. So with that addition of him being invited, I really hope to see him at 100%. I think the whole world bodybuilding and fitness industry wants to see him at 100%. And I think that pressure, it's on his mind. If more now than ever because you've been gone, and so now we're at a point where we have to see the improvements. If we don't, then it's kind of like, well, yeah, that's it. I mean, It's, you know, and so I think people want to see it, and that pressure is there, and I hope he delivers. Like I said, I think he's an amazing athlete, and I think he will force some guys to step their game up because he does bring that element, like, you know, even if he's not 100% conditioned, like, damn, he's so damn big, you know, he can just overpower you with that amount of muscle. So I just hope it fans out and he's able to bring a great package. And then at the end of the day, everyone will say, damn, I'm glad he did get that special invite because he made that shit a hell of a show. And that's how I'm a spectator this year. I'm not present, so I don't have a dog in that fight. But I would definitely like to see him at 100%, you know, on that stage.
Milos.
All right. Well, let me tell you, Joe Weider was the happiest guy in the world in the 2002 when Gunther finally made a top 5. Previously, he was 12th in the 2000 and 15th in the 2001. So how do you give a 3 years consecutive special invitation to the guy that places nowhere? Okay, so this is the huge thing for Big Ramy. Every time he competed, he was a top-notch competitor, and like I said, top 6 in last 4 Olympiads. So for that reason, I think he deserved it by the placings that he had in previous shows and potential. He didn't deserve it as a athlete that, you know, tried his hardest like Iain did, like Samson Dauda did. Yeah, so it's not even comparable. He didn't make that attempt, but he is a big draw for the audience. And let's face it, Jim Mannion, Tyler Mannion, Jake Woods, Olympia promoters, Dan Solomon, they see him worthy and they invited him right away. So it's, of course, their decision. We can discuss all we want if he deserves or not. I personally think that it's great for him to be in the show. And let me tell you, that pressure that you're talking about, I think that pressure is to this point that is going to really get the best out of him. That he's going to come this time. He's specially invited. He got that chance, and he believes in Allah, right? That this is a sign from a God, that it's now time to die down, get shredded, and show the world their true potential. You saw it, Patrick saw it, and Iain. We all agree he is a top-notch competitor that can easily break top 3 and potentially win if he is 100% on. Now with 9 more weeks, can he prepare? If he looked like, you know, what Dave said, it's a fresh picture from the gym, which I agree with you. That's a suspect. How can you be in the gym, you know, 2 days after, 1 week after the COVID? Yeah, it should not be allowed for sure. But if he brings what we all know he can bring, he can win the show, and then we're going to have a completely different conversation after the show.
Dave, final word, the added pressure that Ramy will certainly be facing this year on the Olympia stage.
I don't think it's any higher than years past for him. The problem is that we've been hearing excuses, okay, from Big Ramy for every single time he competes is an excuse about this and about that. You know, to me, that's not delivering. You know, Gunther, we saw the potential in Gunther. I think Joe Weider saw the potential in Gunther, and he actually beat Ronnie Coleman in 2002. So the guy actually produced. I see Ramy as having all the tool set, but not bringing the goods. He's had 10 different coaches already. I can't believe. I know the coaches. Yeah, most of them know what they're doing and know how to get guys in shape. So that I can't blame the coaches every single time. You know, you have to. Ramy has to take some kind of responsibility at some point for not being the way he should be on stage. I have to believe that he's not listening to something or something's not going right. It seems like there's a lot of drama around Ramy, and you know what? I guess that is good for business. So going back to what Iain Valliere said, I think that the right thing, I don't think they strategized this right. I think they should have thought, hey, you know what? We have an off year. It's COVID. We couldn't have as many shows. We couldn't have as many qualifiers. There was restrictions. If we're going to invite Big Ramy to the show because we know he's going to sell tickets, because like, let's face it, that's why they're doing it. Okay, they don't care if he wins the Olympia or not. They want to sell tickets to the pay-per-view and get more fan excitement, especially with the Flex Lewis having to drop out of the show. If we're going to do that, let's figure out a fair way to do it. It was so obvious, and I didn't even suggest it, so I'm not taking credit for it. Iain suggested it. Why not just open up the point system to a couple more qualification spots? Go down the road. All right, what is Ramy? What was he, 6th or 7th in the points? Let's make it the top 10 point getters get qualified for the Olympia.
When we're 4th.
Can I jump in? Sorry,
Yeah.
there's already 21 competitors qualified.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
So,
Yeah, but you know what? It's a
21,
weird
right?
year. It's a weird year. So you know what? They opened. Why did Spain have top 3 qualify? They should have made Spain top 1, and then they should have made the top 10 or top 8 or top 7 point getters, which are the guys that earned it, go to the Olympia. That would have included Ramy. They would have gotten what they wanted with Ramy, and they would have gotten a couple other good guys in that mix while they were at it.
100%.
Agreed.
Yeah, the thing is, they don't want too many competitors at Olympia.
But it would have
This
only
is
been a
why
couple
they
more,
reduce-
Milos. It would have been 1 or 2 more guys. And this way it would have been fairly done because Ramy did have points. It wasn't like the guy had no points, you know?
Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
but
you know what?
okay.
On that point that Milos, like Dave said, if they would have done the top 1 in Spain, it still would have been the equal amount of competitors.
Yeah.
Because you would have taken, instead of taking the top 3, you would have taken the top 5.
Right.
So that would have included
More.
Ramy and an extra. Yeah, so it would have been the same 2 more. You would have basically interchanged the second and third spot from Spain,
Right.
and you would have taken the second and third, or the fourth and fifth spot from the point system. So either way, it's going to be the same anyway.
Yeah, and
So I
Ramy
think
would have
that-
gone.
Yeah,
like they said.
I would suggest, I mean, Arnold Classic, as we all agree, is a huge contest. Back in the day, if you're top 5 at Arnold Classic, you qualify. Top 5.
Well, but there was
This
no
time-
point system back then, Milos. They give
Yeah.
more points to the Arnold placing than they give to anything. So the point system is designed to favor a big show like the Arnold. So you're getting more points
Yeah.
for that show.
But the 9
Yes.
points that had was only from the Arnold.
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
You wanted us to repeat that from? I don't know if Milos heard that. Ian.
No, I didn't.
I said that the 9 points that Randy had was exclusively from the Arnold.
Yes, absolutely. But listen, back in the day, in the 90s, there was top 3 qualified from every show. And if these 3 are previously qualified, 4th players get invitation. That's how it was all the way through the 90s. But top 5 at Night of the Champions, top 5 at Arnold Classic, and top 10 from Olympia immediately qualified. I just think that Arnold Classic is, by, as Dave said, invitation only cream of the crop. If you are top 3, that's something. I think the top 3 from Arnold Classic should qualify immediately. That one contest, I mean, it's the second biggest contest after the Olympia.
Well, the top 3 is worth something. It's worth 9 points, and that's exactly what it was worth. And he got 9 points, which was 1 point short, 1 spot short of qualifying.
Yeah.
He needed to do a second show, which he was prepared to do, but he wasn't able to do it. I mean, so he wasn't able to accumulate any more points. You know,
I mean, when you talk
this
about
is-
deserving,
This is a
He
separate
was-
discussion. If we want to talk about, it's changing to top 3 at Arnold, and this, blah, blah, blah. That's a completely separate discussion than does Ramy deserve an invite. I mean, look, I think there's a ton of things we could change. I think, certain shows, we could make the Arnold top 3. We could make the Olympia different. I mean, there's a ton of things we could do, which is a very separate discussion. But at the end of the day, we're talking about Ramy deserving an invite. And I think, like Patrick said from the beginning, the verbiage of saying deserving is a very slippery slope. And I think it's just something we really need to avoid. Which has been the discussion we've had, right?
Yeah. But he did make an attempt to go to Australia. It was canceled. He did make a.
So did a thousand other competitors. So did everybody else. So did everybody. So did everybody trying to do anything. Samson tried. Everybody tried. People tried. I mean, Samson got all. Hit the first show. He went to try and do Tampa, and he got denied going into the U.S. And then he went to Korea. He did all these. I mean, so
Absolutely.
This comes down to, which I can't disagree with whatsoever, which we've all agreed on. Ramy's great for the Olympia. We all want Ramy at the Olympia. Ramy is great. Does Ramy deserve a special invite? No. But is he great for the Olympia and for bodybuilding and to make the show more competitive? That's undebatable. I mean, of course that is. I mean, none of us can say that having Ramy there won't make it a better show or won't make the show more competitive or that Ramy is an elite competitor. Absolutely. But he needed to prove his eliteness within this given year by qualifying, which he was unable to do.
Yeah. The only final point that I agree with you, but final point, the special invitation is not by deserving, it's by choice. This is how it is. It's not, okay, he deserves, so let's invite him. There was always choice of promoters and IBB Federation. It's not by deserving.
But the conversation we're having was, did he deserve it? That's a separate conversation. If we want to talk about the IFBB rules and stuff like this and changing shows and blah, 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 and, the rule of, that they can extend invites however they want, willy-nilly or whatever, yeah, I mean, that's a separate debate, which I think maybe would be a good iron debate. But the conversation was, did Ramy deserve it? And I think, my position is that no one deserves a special invite unless we're talking the precedent of like a Kevin or Flex or, someone that's removed from the sport that's going to make a special appearance. I think that's definitely a different case. Yes.
Fair enough.
There you go.
100%.
So It's a fundamental disagreement, one that certainly the fans, media analysts are going to debate over the course of the next 8 weeks as we ride into the Olympia. What do you think? Should Ramy have gotten a special invite, or do you agree with Milos saying that at the end of the day, it's the promoter's choice, and if they want to invite him or anybody else, then that's the deal? Obviously, look, we know Big Ramy is great for bodybuilding. He's great for the Olympia. And if he puts it all together, if he brings his absolute package, then we could be talking about Ramy in the running potentially to unseat Brandon Curry. He's that potentially good. He's that gifted of a bodybuilder. We've seen him bring it before. If he could bring it to that level, who knows? Should be exciting, but this is what you can expect over the next 8 weeks as we ride into the Olympia. Plenty more of these Iron Debates, interviews with the Olympia athletes, as well as all sorts of preview segments. Keep it locked to rxmuscle.com. For Iain Valliere, Patrick Moore, Milos Sarcev, Dave Palumbo, and our producer Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.